Today's speaker is Frank McGillin, Chief Commercial Officer at NeuroMetrix. As most of you know, our New England Innovation Awards concluded last Thursday with the announcements of this year's winners. We are proud to announce that NeuroMetrix is one of the winners in the for-profit category. Frank is leading the development of a class of wearables with the launch of Quell wearable pain relief technology, sorry, Frank, an FDA-cleared 100% drug-free alternative for managing chronic pain. It's available online and through major U.S. retailers like Amazon, Target, QVC, Walmart, and Walgreens. It's been covered extensively on Good Morning America, CBS News, Fortune, Forbes, Wired, and Men's Health. And Quell was the winner of the South by Southwest Innovation Award for Wearable Technology. Frank has over 20 years of experience building successful, high-growth consumer health and technology brands at Philips and Johnson & Johnson. Frank has a BA from Northeastern University and an MBA from Fordham University. Please welcome Frank McGillin.
Thank you, Susan. And thank you for inviting me here to speak today at the SBANE breakfast. So over the past 3 years, we've made a transition from traditional medical device company to more of a consumer products company. And this year, we'll probably do about 70% of our business direct to consumer, as well as through some of our through our distribution partners. A little bit of history on the shift, and talk a little bit about NeuroMetrix. So the company's been around for 20 years. We came out of MIT. Shai Gazani is the founder, PhD, MD out of the Harvard Medical School, MIT joint program, and started this company with this idea that you could do non-invasive testing for things like carpal tunnel syndrome, peripheral nerve damage, and basically take what were highly involved tests that you had to go to a neurologist to have and put that testing capability in any clinician's hands. So I think we're getting there. So in the hands of a doctor, a nurse, a podiatrist could do nerve conduction studies. And we built a pretty successful business over the years. But have run over the past 5 years, seen a lot of headwinds in terms of the medical device space. First off, low growth. And low growth is driven by things like reimbursement, where reimbursement rates were going down. One of our products, the reimbursement rate 5 years ago, was about $700 per device per patient. That's under $100 per device per patient now. And if you've seen it's affected a lot of companies, like in diabetes space, for example, companies like Johnson & Johnson, let me see if we can get this to work. Johnson & Johnson that had a pretty significant diabetic testing business, they've laid off sales forces and really condensed because it's become more of a commodity business. So I think as we were looking at, there we go, as we were looking at where do we drive growth? What are we good at? The objective or the idea of going direct to consumer made sense. Why? Well, first off, consumers are becoming much more engaged in their own healthcare and really are taking more control of their healthcare. Second is the whole idea of digital technology and digital health is providing new tools that didn't exist. And we believe that based on our expertise in neurostimulation, as well as some of the things we were doing with a prescription pain relief device, that we had the right to win in consumer. So I joined 3 years ago from Philips, basically to start up this new consumer health business. I think we'll talk a lot about sort of differences between sort of being a B2B health, medical device company and a direct-to-consumer business. I think also, some of this stuff applies to any sort of startup that's thinking about how do you get into a direct-to-consumer business. I think final point is I'd like to keep it interactive, so I have slides here, but I'd say if you have questions, ask along the way. I'd like to keep it a little more interactive. It's not a huge group. So a couple of things we want to talk through background. We talked through the background. And I kind of captured what I think are some of the key things that were really important for us as we made this switch. I think first off was really starting and understanding the consumer. And it's very different when you're a B2B company and you have a direct relationship with Joe down the street who buys your product, or this hospital or this doctor. It's different than trying to get feedback from millions of consumers. So a lot of difference in terms of how to do that. Design and branding become much more important in a consumer business. Our channel strategy obviously is very different. How do you build and keep up with demand? Because the demand curve is much different in consumer. What it meant for our team, as well as what we measure in doing a direct-to-consumer business. So I kind of talked about this. We're, again, founded in 96. We had about 50 people in the company. We actually make our products in Woburn. So our offices are across the street at 1000 Winter Street, and then we manufacture all of our products today in Woburn. So we really are a Massachusetts-based company, and talked, I think, a little bit about the rest of it. Oh, final point is in our B2B space and our legacy, we've always had really a razor blade model, and we've continued that today. So we sell devices, but we also have a consumable part of our business. In our legacy business, it was biosensors that were used for each individual test, and with our newer business, Quell, it's about the electrodes, which are, think about my contact lens, a disposable contact lens. They wear out over time. So starting with the consumer, we did a lot of work, and we actually started looking at diabetics as our core consumer. We said we're going to sell to diabetics, and that was because our legacy, we sold a lot of products for people with diabetes, peripheral neuropathy or painful diabetic neuropathy. But some of our early learning and testing of the devices, we found that it worked for broadly against chronic pain. So we started saying, okay, well, let's think broader than diabetics. And we've been sort of refining and understanding more about our consumer base over time. But we've kind of landed on three sort of groups, and it's roughly about 18 million consumers. One large group is we call weekend warriors, and that's basically aging boomers who, whether it's their knee kills them after running or biking, overexertion, they go out and play golf, their back's killing them. And these are people who, they've got money, they want to stay active, they don't think of themselves as sickly, but pain is getting in the way of their life. We have second half embracers, which will be a little bit older, 60 to 70, and these are folks, maybe not that weekend warrior, but again, they're finding that what they used to do they can't do anymore, and they don't like it. They want to keep getting over it. And then the final group we have is, it's the oldest, it's also the largest. We call it the quality of life realists. They're average around 70, 70 plus. And these are folks who know they're getting old, have kind of come to grips with it getting old, but again, they don't want to stop. And everything we do, we try to get back to what's in the mind of these people. So we did some early, just actually went and visited some of these consumers in their homes, and we had early prototypes of the product. And learned things like the typical, it's more of the quality of life realist, you say, well, what medications you taking? And they pulled out this pile of pill bottles and said, I'm taking all of these, all these pills. We said, well, how do you feel about that? What we heard was, I don't want to take another freaking pill. Make it simple for me. The other thing was because of all the medications they were taking and I'll call them accommodations they were putting in their life, they said, make it simple. If this is really complex, I won't use it. Make it so make it so it really just fits into my life. So, we took a lot of this learning and we've really based that into what we're doing from our technology and from our go-to-market. I think a final thing we heard is, as we were talking about a new device for them, they said, don't make it look like something a sick person would wear. I know I've got a chronic illness, but I don't want to advertise that when I'm walking down the street. And I think many people, you've seen people with like COPD or respiratory issues, and they're carrying their oxygen tanks. They're like, I don't want to be that person. So we thought about that, and we've continued to think about the end consumer. That gets us into design. So, we've basically gone from what we've heard looked like a house arrest bracelet to performance sport tech. And I'll talk again, this gets back to B2B versus consumer. So our previous, or the predecessor to Quell was called Census. Underlying technology was identical to what we sell in Quell, but it was available, it was a prescription product, it was sold through durable medical equipment suppliers. Primarily reimbursed from Medicare. So if you're selling in that channel, there's a couple things that you have to design for. First off, you had to design for rentability. because there was a trial period where someone may or may not convert to an active user, and you need something that could be sanitized and basically re-rented. That put basic constraints around how you design the product. So it was basically industrial strength plastics. The band that you wore around your leg was this, again, industrial strength Velcro. We heard repeatedly, I feel like I'm on house arrest, and it was not comfortable. So as we designed Quell, we really said, let's make it look like something maybe a runner would wear. Let's make it look like something that if you're not proud of, you wouldn't be embarrassed to wear. So that's when we really worked with the design firm IDEO to try to design both the look and feel of it to look like something, again, something I wouldn't be embarrassed to wear, as well as design the user interface so that it was very intuitive. And that gets back to what we heard was, my life's complex enough, I don't need something I have to fiddle with and play with. Make it easy. And we really build in from our app as well as the automation in the device itself to make it really simple for the end user. So, in B2B, if you're selling a medical device, the look and feel is less important. It's all about technical specs. It's all about, technical specs, clinical studies, et cetera. But when you think about consumers, looks matter. And that's why design was really important. Second thing that became really different in terms of how we thought about the business was around branding. Medical device, you needed a name for your product. Branding was important. But if you just Google alternative pain relief, you'll get 56 million results. It's a lot of competition, right? 56 million different things out there. And if you scan the world of chronic pain alternatives, you've got Advil. You also have the prescription, the Oxycontins, the oxycodones, and all those nasty opioid-type products. You've got creams and ointments and gels. You've got traditional TENS devices with wires and cables. You've got medical marijuana. You've got copper bracelets for pain. And then, this one I researched I thought was kind of interesting. They're magnetic ear pellets for pain, which I guess you put these magnetic pellets in your ear and your pain goes away. So, what we had as a challenge is you think about, who knows, it might work. I'm not going to diss them. But, as you think about bringing out this new consumer product, is how do you kind of stand out from there? How do you become memorable? How do you become differentiated? And so branding became important as we were trying to build awareness. And if you think about branding, it's more than logo and packaging. It's how we compete. That's for example, that's our logo and our packaging. And we went through extensive kind of development work about what was the right brand name? What do we call the product? What do we stand for? How do we think about chronic pain sufferers? We really spent a lot of time. We settled the fact that we need to think of our consumers as people, not patients. These aren't like sufferers. These are people who are going to be more active. We wanted to make sure it looked technically advanced. And if you think of those products on the previous page, we wanted to think more Apple than magnetic ear pellets. And we took really that sort of definition and really applied it to everything we do. Our customer care team. We get about 1,500 calls on average a week on our customer care team. And we need to make sure that the way they answer the phone, the way they handle the calls reflects the fact that we're innovative technology, that we really care, and that's important. Where we're sold. There were a lot of opportunities we had from outlets that we did not pursue because it just didn't fit our branding. How we ship. We ship everything when we do direct-to-consumer in 2 days because we think it's important to get the product and help you relieve pain quickly. And we kind of say that when we say how we ship. Unpack experience. When you open the box, does it look high-tech? Does it look like we understand them? The app and the features we have on the app and how we design the app, again, to reinforce the brand. And then descriptions on our partner websites to make sure that they really get the messaging right. They're not over-promising from pain relief, and they're really talking about sort of Quell as part of an overall solution for your chronic pain. So that was, I think, is sort of as we were really putting our strategy, really getting And defining that and make sure we live that every day was important, and much more important than on the B2B side. Channels, and I just, I kind of basically put the list, and I'm not going to go through every point on this slide, but we had an evolution of our channel strategy, and it was purposeful evolution. But if you think about, you're launching a new consumer brand nobody's heard of. Well, you could try to go head-to-head against Advil on TV and go broke pretty quickly. So that strategy doesn't make much sense. You could build it and hope they come, and good luck with that strategy. So we looked at how do we kind of build and learn and develop. So we actually, our first sales for Quell were through crowdfunding. And if people familiar with like Indiegogo or Kickstarter? Anyone ever bought anything on one of those? Okay, a few hands. So crowdfunding is, it's come up in the last 5 years or so, and it started with people have an idea and they want to run, basically raise $50,000, $100,000 to commercialize their idea. You post a video and your story on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, and people make donations. And it's not like you're buying a product, because you may or may not ever get the product. And generally, it's like, we need $100,000 to scale up this new iPod charger that plugs in your wall, or a hovercraft that is also a beer cooler. I mean, crazy stuff, crazy stuff. If you look at crowdfunding, I'd say first off, it's really easy to launch something on crowdfunding. It doesn't take a lot of money. You just shoot a video, shoot some pictures of your product, make some stuff up, because a lot of it is kind of made up, and you can get on any of these crowdfunding sites pretty easily. Challenges, there's tens or hundreds of thousands of different products out there, so it's pretty easy to get lost. I think one of the mistakes a lot of people who launch on any of these crowdfunding sites is they think, okay, I've got a cool technology or product, and I just throw it up there. People will find me, and I'll sell 10,000 of them, and we're off to the races. And the learning, and we did a lot of research before we did this, was that you need to basically be promoting your product, build your email list beforehand, and get people to drive people there, do online marketing and search marketing to drive people to your campaign. So it does take real marketing. There's also back-end complexity. We launched the Kickstarter campaign on a Sunday, and by like Wednesday that week, we had 2,600 orders, and it was like, oh shit, what are we going to do now? So how do you actually get that order volume out of and get it into your ERP system? So there's back-end complexity that if you ignore, you could be in a lot of trouble. But for us, we weren't doing it to raise funds. We're a NASDAQ traded company. But we did it. It was a great way to get really fast consumer feedback of early adopters. So it made sense for us to look at that as an early channel for pre-ordering and early adopters. Direct was always part of our strategy. There's some real benefits of selling direct to consumer for a new brand. Margin's great, and it's probably the least important reason to start selling direct. I think the first thing is that you own that customer relationship. And if for a new business, you can get a lot of learning from that relationship in terms of follow-up emails to them, actually doing surveys, reaching out on the phone and calling them. Also 100% control of the content. So as you're trying to shape the message, you can control it. So we launched direct, in April of, we launched direct from pre-order we weren't taking orders in April 2015. We started taking direct orders in June, July of 2015. And it's again, great for the margin, but limited in scale. There's also believability. Again, there's 1 million products on the internet. How do you know you can trust this tiny company in Waltham, Massachusetts I never heard of? And there's things we could do there. It does cost to drive traffic. Credit card fraud. And I'll talk a little bit about e-commerce later, but there's a lot of things about running an e-commerce business that were very different than taking 50 orders or 150 orders a week direct from consumer. In our B2B business. Other online, Amazon is sort of the 1,000-pound gorilla of online online retailers. Amazon's, I guess first off, I'd say you can't avoid Amazon, but you need to really understand how to sell to Amazon. You can get good margin because they're a very efficient organization if you compare that to traditional bricks and mortar. Amazon Prime is an incredible weapon. And anybody here a Prime member? Okay, a lot more Prime members here. Do you buy a lot of stuff on Amazon? Incredible loyalty to Prime members, and frankly, if you think about it, it's one of the lessons is, we started charging for shipping when we launched on our e-commerce platform, because why not? A lot of sites do. But if you look today, there's very few products being sold, and our price point's $250. Very few premium products where you'll pay for shipping. So Prime is really, really important. Great reach. Recent data shows that more people search for new products on Amazon than Google. If you think about that, that's a pretty tremendous shift. That's the first place people go to search for new products. So great reach. It is relatively low effort. It's not like launching in a retail store, so small company can pull that off pretty easily. I think the challenge is you don't have any customer data. So, particularly if you're trying to train people to use a new device or new technology, you don't own it. Price erosion is a real risk. And if you look at, you buy on Amazon and you see 15 different vendors, 15 different places you could buy a product. It's Amazon Marketplace. Anybody here could start selling a Quell on Amazon Marketplace tomorrow. And you see on a lot of products where the channels aren't controlled, that they'll have 100 different options for purchase and it becomes a price game. And you're competing against yourself on Amazon. So that's something we were very hesitant. We wanted to go slow with Amazon so we could make sure we controlled pricing. And there's different ways to sell on Amazon. Fulfilled by Amazon, where you're kind of halfway in versus being a full Amazon vendor. But I think one of the biggest challenges, I think any new business needs to be on Amazon, but you need to really understand how to manage your pricing, or you could lose control if it's not done well. Amazon's it's a labyrinth. It's great if you're a customer of Amazon; they really care about you. If you're one of a million or millions of vendors on Amazon, if you have a problem, trying to get the right person to solve a problem is a challenge. So, we've really looked at partners and how to get there. Specialty retailers, QVC was one of the first specialty retailers we launched on. And again, you think mind shift. Shai Gazani's our CEO, again, PhD, MD, and if I'd asked him 5 years ago, are you ever going to sell a product on QVC, he would have said, you're absolutely crazy. But we look back again at the consumers who are sort of target consumer groups, they're on QVC, from an age demographic and from some of the health conditions we're talking about. The real beauty, though, of QVC is that, for a product like Quell, you get 10 minutes to promote your product. And it's like a 10-minute infomercial for your product. So it's a great way to educate, and for us, we saw it was a great way to educate consumers. It didn't really cost us anything. We didn't have to pay for an ad. We didn't have to pay for Google search terms. They're driving the demand. So that we like. Margin is mixed, but they demand higher margin than most channels. But again, they're driving their own demand. So if you look at it from a cost per incremental consumer, it's pretty good. Online retail like QVC has higher returns than other channels. So it's something we needed to factor in as we looked at the economics. And then finally, traditional retailers, Target, CVS, Walgreens, all of our research said, where would you expect to find Quell? It was, we expect to find you in, CVS or Walgreens. It's great credibility, great scale. It's complex, and there's, execution is really variable. You can get CVS really excited, and we launched in about 1,500 CVS stores earlier this year. But if you look at the CVS in Watertown, or you look at one in downtown Boston versus one in Andover, very different based on the individual store manager and how they execute at retail. So, the execution can be a challenge, particularly given our price point. We're high price point versus other stuff in the drug channel. And it finally can be expensive just because there's a lot of fees that retailers have and needs to be managed well. And I think from our perspective, we found that having the right partners really helped us as we were navigating those retail channels. So I wanted to spend a little bit more time talking about e-commerce and direct, because that was an area where, I think for us, we put a lot of effort into to make sure we did it right. And, we made some mistakes earlier on. We did some stuff right early on, and we continue to learn and adapt. But I think number one thing you need is a fast, stable platform. And, there was some data I heard from Walmart that said, basically a delay of like 20 microseconds in the checkout process like doubles your cart abandonment rate because people are just impatient. So, this is, I'd say e-commerce, if you're a small company, is not something you want to develop a homegrown system. And our IT department, when we first started talking about this, was like, oh yeah, we can do it. We'll just do this add-on to Microsoft, to our Microsoft ERP system. So a stable platform is really important. Scalability is important. Going from 5 or 100 orders a week to 10,000 a week. And we're not 10,000 yet, but scalability is important. Control and credit card security are critical. And I can say one thing I was really adamant about, and we started this was I think right around the time that Target had the major data breach with credit cards. And I'm like, that's the last thing we need is credit card breach. Could kill a small company, kill a small brand. So credit card security was really important. Integrating with the ERP system so you can actually drive the sales, and then drive close rates. Design of the checkout process, design of the store can really vary the checkout process. So there's a lot of data behind just where do you put this button or that button. We decided to go with an outsourced solution. We're using a solution called Shopify. I think it's the largest or number 2 outsourced e-commerce platform. And we just looked at these challenges and said, our business is all about having the best technology in the world. Our business is all about helping people relieve pain. We're not all about designing web e-commerce platforms. And that's been very successful for us. I'd say credit card security, even with the best solution you have, or credit card fraud, no matter what you put up, there's people trying to game, and we found Canadians tend to be, and why Canada, and it's Quebec, but we have, we'll get these like orders for 15 devices from Montreal, and it's often fraud. And beauty of a platform like we're using with Shopify is that it basically has fraud alerts and tools built into it to flag fraudulent orders. So, okay, so you got the store up. The next question is, how do you build demand? For us, we started with a focus on PR and digital. In a small company, an investment that, something was scalable, and we thought that, first off, a high educational value was important. And we were on a nice growth trajectory. We were lucky in September of 2015 that we were able to get picked up by Good Morning America. They did like a 7-minute piece on Quell. And it was transformational from the business. We saw our phone lines go through the roof, web traffic go through the roof. So what we saw was just how impactful TV was in terms of driving sales, which I guess shouldn't be rocket science, but we found that our web-only solution was only taking us so far in terms of web marketing. And PR, we continue to get good PR hits, but it's, you can't guarantee you're going to be on the nightly news once a week. So we started direct response TV about a year ago. And so direct response TV advertising. We're working with a company, Mercury Media. They offices in Marlborough. And direct response, it's typically you think of, help, I fall and I can't get up, the 800 numbers, the pillow companies, Ron Popeil. So direct response runs the gamut. The key thing is that direct response, there is a call to action, which is call this number or visit this website. From a media standpoint, it's all remnant. What does that mean? It means that you're buying leftovers. It also means you're probably paying somewhere around 25 to 30% of what you would be on normal if you were sort of buying advertising on a normal rate. So direct response lets us, as a small company, actually advertise on TV. We spend most of our money on cable news channels like CNN, Fox News, as well as MSNBC. And again, it aligns well with our target audience. But we found that direct response TV with online activity has been really a winning formula for us. Social media, and that's been interesting for us and a great learning, is social media is something that we really pay a lot of attention to. And it can kill you or it can be, great. So who heard that there was an issue with United Airlines a few weeks ago? Think about that as what that did for the brand. How many people thought about, am I going to fly United Airlines? And that was, someone with a video and just put something out there viral. But it also works for the good of a brand. We started a Facebook group shortly after launch, and what we find is it's a place where people go to ask questions about it. There's a couple of Quell user groups that are private groups for people who are using Quell. But we put a lot of effort into it to make sure that we're present when people are talking about the brand. If people say, are saying, well, it doesn't work on this, or it does something that, we make sure that we're active and part of that conversation so the conversation doesn't get off track. We're also, as part of that, when we look at user reviews, really active there to look at user reviews. And if Quell doesn't work for someone, and it won't work for everyone, we make sure we reinforce, we have a 60-day money-back guarantee. Call us. Doesn't work for everyone. Make sure you try it long enough. So engaging in people on social media, again, something we never did as a B2B medical device company, has been really important for us. So final thing is really about how do we manage through growth. In 2014, we shipped about 6,500 devices. We also shipped a bunch of the replenishment sensors. Last 12 months, we shipped about 56,000 devices. 56,000 devices in the last 12 months. To date, we've shipped about 80,000 Quell devices. So if you think about it from an organization, from a scale, and we do manufacture our products, we ship our products out of Woburn, it did put some strains. And it did affect basically all aspects of the organization. And I think the biggest thing we've been doing in order to try to deal with the growth and deal with the change is really think about partnerships. We did change, particularly in sales and marketing, obviously, the profile of people we hired. We were hiring people with more consumer packaged goods experience, direct-to-consumer experience. We also had to be careful to hire the right type of consumer person. Someone who's been working at Gillette in a marketing role for 20 years may be a great consumer marketer, but can they work in a company of 50 people where they're booking their own flight, airline reservations? We will change on a dime if something's not working, and as a new business, we're making it up every day. So the type of person we hired needed to be very different than either what we had before, but also a typical consumer marketer or consumer salesperson. Our operations, dealing with scale and the unpredictability of a new product launch, we really had to evolve how we thought about supply chain. So, beyond the core functions, we really benefited from great partners. From a PR, from advertising. I talked a little bit about e-commerce and how we, leverage different e-commerce platforms. On the engineering side, we are really good hardware engineers. I mean, with 20 years of doing neurotechnology, we're not so good at apps, and we're taking baby steps in apps. So we partnered with a group that really, out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, that really understands the technology between mobile and apps. And it's beyond just does the screen work, et cetera, but Bluetooth connectivity. And how do you ensure Bluetooth connectivity between an iPhone and all the various manufacturers and variations of Android? So we hired some experts there. From an operations standpoint, we've got really great supply chain partners, both as we look at where we source boards, plastics, and packaging. And in there, we had to evolve both on scale, but also sort of what were expectations of a consumer product. You couldn't just throw it in a brown cardboard box and expect that, people are going to think we're a, premium brand worth $250. And then sales, I mentioned and showed earlier, we had different channels we were selling into. One of our lessons there was early on we thought, well, we can hire one good, sales broker organization, and they, we hired one really good one, and we continue to work with them, but they could sell into anything. And while good salespeople are good salespeople, Best Buy is really different from Amazon, which is really different from Walgreens, which is really different from Walmart, Target, et cetera. So you really have to understand the different channels. So we found that sort of a suite and working with different pool of vendors was really helpful there, and partners that had the relationships, but more importantly, understood the account, what their margin requirements are, how you get things done. If you got a problem, who do you call? All of those issues. So we found that the team, we were really able to scale because of doing okay time-wise, because we had good partners. And then finally, what we measured was really different. We still look at all the financials, and obviously, because we're trying to run a business. But we looked at also a lot of new measures that were more leading indicators. So web traffic and conversion was critical. Web traffic was just a great, in general, to our website. Let us know, is our marketing working? Were people seeing our ads or whatever? Because that was sort of a great measure of awareness. Conversion rate within our own website, did we lose them or did we actually capture that sale? Overall sales, but also installed base growth. I think I said that right. Were people continuing to use the product over time? That's really important because we're in a razor blade model, and if people abandon usage, then we don't have that future sale. Customer acquisition cost is probably the biggest thing that we obsess about, because that's whether we make money or not, is how much does it cost per incremental user. We know what our lifetime value is per new user, and trying to get that ratio in line, and it's something we're pretty fanatical about. App downloads and cloud registrations. So app downloads helps make our product more sticky. We know that if folks who are using the app use the product more often, buy more electrodes than other folks, so we're trying to make sure they're downloading the app on day one, and that we do things to engage and keep them using it regularly. Amazon and Facebook star ratings. If you've got 2 stars on Amazon or you've got 5 stars on Amazon, really affects sales. We put every day we have someone auditing our Facebook and our Amazon reviews and managing that. And then finally, traditional business measures you'd look at, which are sales, margin, cash consumption. Are we making money, and are we, from our strategy, delivering on our strategy? So I guess finally, just what were the lessons learned we had was focus on the end consumer. At the end of the day, if you can make that end consumer, for us, that chronic pain patient, if we can make a difference in their life, they'll keep buying and they'll talk to their friends about us. So we're pretty fanatical about that. Leverage partnerships. Small company, particularly going through a transformation, don't assume you can do it all, and find great partners. And we found great partners. Understand how you're going to generate demand and understand your customer acquisition cost. Too many people think I'll launch a consumer product and people just buy it. Finally, know how to generate. I'm sorry, I said know how to generate. Finally, is just be flexible. We made a lot of really smart decisions early on, and we made along the way, we've made some things that you look back and you say, what were we thinking? But we had an organization that was very flexible and adaptive, and it helped us continue growth. So hopefully this was, insightful and helpful, and I appreciate you having me here this morning. Any questions before we, wrap up?
I just have a quick
Sure.
question. Do you need FDA approval for this, and did going from the medical to the consumer market change that?
Great question. So our product's class 2 medical device. We did need to go through FDA clearance. And as part of getting over-the-counter labeling, we had to show that the average person with our instructions could use the product safely and effectively. So that was absolutely an important step. Sure.
There's a company out of Dallas, Texas, Thrive is the product they sell. thrive as a wearable form of nutrition, like a patch. Instead of giving up smoking, you wear a patch.
Yep.
And that patch provides nutrition to you throughout the day, along with a capsule and a shake. They use a multi-level marketing approach.
Yep.
And what they're selling, technology, and I think who they're going after, while it's different players than yours, it seems to be very effective. Have you guys looked at that at all?
We haven't looked at multi-level marketing. I think there's a lot of companies that make a lot of money at it. Looking at from a health technology or a healthcare or a health technology product, we're founded in science and we're based in science, and generally multi-level is there's a lot of snake oil. So we decided to go more direct to consumer and leverage traditional retail channels, both online and brick and mortar. Yep.
When I saw a picture of your box, for the product, I thought of something medical, okay? I was just curious, have you looked at a box design that emphasizes you're an athletic person, so you could use this because it'll help you and so forth, something more general to that area versus what you have today? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, great question. So I'd say first off, if I had the back of the box, you'd see, basically a person using it in an active situation. First and foremost, we look at ourselves as being a breakthrough technology, and we tried to really connote technology. And it gets back to that competitive landscape out there. There's a lot of competitors, and there's, basically you see a lot of advertisement with someone like, and then you see the happy person after they've taken your pill, use your cream or whatever. And we have really unique technology, and we try to reinforce our point of difference while communicating the benefit in other ways. So good question. Yeah.
A ballpark number of about what percent of top line sales you would spend on the direct response TV?
Yeah, we look at, again, a little bit differently. We look at customer acquisition cost and that versus lifetime value. Obviously, you want your customer acquisition cost to be lower than lifetime value, which I can assure you. It kind of depends on the margin structure of your business. So for us, our business is razor blade. Our margins are thinner on the device. But if we can get someone to be an active Quell user and they're using Quell for 3 years on average, and they buy 4 to 6 packages of electrodes per year, it's a really high value. It's sort of like the cell phone companies. It's like they lure you in with this, get your iPhone for free, and then you're paying them $200 a month, like forever.
Do you have a number that you would generally spend, just generally on PR and even direct response TV, that you would say maybe 10% of our top line number we invest into?
It really depends. Like in year one, we spent more than our top line in marketing, and that's very typical in the first year of a consumer business. Now it's not sustainable, but if you think of it, obviously, but when no one's heard of you and you have no sales, you've got to invest, and it kind of depends what your margin structure is and what your competitive sets. I don't think there's any top line. What I can tell you is you got to know again what you're going to earn from that customer over a lifetime, and you've got to look at what it costs you to gain that new customer, and I think then you also look at what's your cash reserve and
Ultimate ROI.
yeah, and you look at that ROI. Yeah. Sure.
You talk about social media, so for a small company, it has to be challenging to have guards out to watch, make sure nothing on social media gets out of control. So how do you address that?
For us, I mean, it's Twitter and Facebook are the two key, and it gets back to our users. It's an older demographic. Our average users are between 45 and 65, and they tend to be on Facebook. Some on Twitter. It's probably 90% Facebook. And we have one person who basically, she handles PR and social media. She has alerts set up when there's a posting, and just, you basically monitor it and react. But
is she doing that literally all the time, or is there a specific window where your users are more active that she's really focusing on?
so she's not she's not 24 hours a day sitting in front of the computer waiting for someone to post. So that's part of her job. And basically there's monitoring. We use tools to help monitor, tools to help post. I mean, larger companies will have, there's agencies, social media agencies that, they'll do all of that. And if you think about, if we're spending $100 million a year and at 100 million users, then the level of social media would probably not be manageable by, one or two individuals. So, yeah.
One more.
One more? Okay, sure.
Have you guys thought about using in social media influencers at all to try to capture maybe some younger markets?
Absolutely. So part of it, we've done some seeding of Quell devices to people who are very active on social media in the chronic pain community. And basically reached out to them, said we've got this tech, we'd love you to try it out and write a review. And that's been very effective. We had a user group 2 weeks ago where we weren't sure how it was going to turn out, but we wanted to get some testimonials, so we sent emails out to about 50 people in the sort of metro area who had purchased Quells over the last year. And we ended up with 30 people showed up for our user event. And again, it's been real life-changing for them. They love to talk about it, so we try every opportunity we do to kind of tap into these people and get them to share amongst the community. Great. Well, thank you. I appreciate the time this morning.